4 weeks ago, Atletico Madrid humiliated Real Madrid, and it looks like Arteta was closely watching that encounter, as his tactical game plan was designed to pour Atleti out of their defensive element. And this video will be slightly different than usual, as I want to focus in depth on one specific tactical element rather than many at a shallower level. So without wasting any time, let's take a look at the tactics on display. Atleti, for the most part, were happy to sit slightly deeper in the early exchanges, with the Arsenal centre-backs seeing a lot of the ball and progressing through their own third pretty easily. And as Arsenal shifted to a single pivot system, Sorloth and Alvarez would either both sit on Zubimendi, or at most they used a piston press, with one man remaining on the pivot whilst the other pressed the centre-back, depending on whether it was Saliba or Gabriel with the ball. And as Arsenal pushed up the pitch, we saw, as usual, they like to build with a back three, with both Timber and Lewis Skelly happy to push in depending on the situation. Although Timber was much more willing to overlap on the outside to assist Saka, allowing the Englishman to move inside the pitch. And initially, Simeone looked to set up defensively similarly to how he did against Madrid, and that was by having Simeone to a right wing-back position with Llorente tucking in, so that Atleti were now in a 5-3-2. This shape has the natural advantage of being extremely strong through the middle and effectively funneling the opponents wide, from where Atletico Madrid would fancy themselves to deal with the aerial, or if the winger tried to take on their man instead, Atleti would at least have time to shift across and assist the wing back. But maybe even more importantly, if Arsenal had set up in one of their preferred structures offensively, which often ends up as a front five, with the central midfielders having pushed higher, Atleti would be perfectly positioned to go man-to-man with the front line, and most importantly deal with these men in the half spaces. But Arsenal's actual shape on the pitch was instantly destabilizing this. Rice was actually very rarely in this position. And what was the impact of this? Well, we see it as early as the first couple of minutes, as with Lewis Skelly moving out wide, Barrios begins to shift in case he has to press him, and Llorente is unsure whether he should follow this deep and create a hole in the back five structure or hold his position, potentially leaving Rice free. So Atleti, the strong defensive unit that they are, immediately looked to adapt and shifted to a 4-4-2, with Simeone returning to a more traditional right midfielder position to press Lewis Skelly. Llorente was then wide, and now rather than having both forwards on a single pivot, Alvarez and Sorloth sat on Rice and Zubimendi. But what Arsenal did extremely well down the left-hand side was have consistent rotations that were always asking Atleti questions. And at times, Atleti would adapt easily, like here. We see Llorente moving on to Martinelli while Simeone inverts with Lewis Skelly, and here Barrios was aware enough to follow the run by Rice into the half space. But at times, when Lewis Skelly moved into the midfield, Simeone would be drawn in, and with Martinelli holding the width down the left, Llorente could then be drawn out, growing the gap between himself and the centre-back and making room for potential runs in behind. And the left side rotations could destabilize the Atleti shape, allowing Arsenal to move up the pitch easily. And in this situation, Rice rotates to be the deepest man, and Martinelli has dragged Simeone all the way infield, and Llorente is wide on Lewis Skelly. So after picking up the ball deep, Rice can move up the pitch pretty easily, and this allows Lewis Skelly to be isolated against the defender, eventually allowing him to get past his man, and Arsenal are very quickly into the box. And these left side rotations pay off in the biggest way for Arsenal's second goal. Lewis Skelly moves infield, and we see that temporary indecision, as Llorente is unsure if Simeone will move out wide towards Rice, meaning that he would have to push up onto Lewis Skelly, or would he hold his position? So once Lewis Skelly is able to get past Simeone, it means that Llorente is now 3 versus 1 down, when including Martinelli and Rice, and eventually this gives Martinelli the room for the finish. But what did you make of this match? Of course, the video is much shorter than usual, so drop anything else you noticed down below, and also let me know what you think of these shorter, more concentrated videos when I don't have the time to put together a full analysis. And if you enjoyed this video, you probably like tactics in general, and I've put together Tactics 12 for you, which is my free program where over the course of 12 days, I will teach you the basics of tactical analysis. If that sounds good, check it out through the link in the description. And if you like this video, you might be wondering why Atleti had so much more success against Real Madrid. Click on screen now for a deep dive into that match.